The grand entrance of the luxury shopping mall, typically a sanctuary of pristine marble and hushed opulence, was anything but that day. A torrential rainstorm lashed outside, and beneath the golden canopy, a 15-year-old boy, Kevin Williams, sought desperate shelter. "Get out of here, punk! You're scaring my customers away." Security guard Anderson's voice ripped through the air, laced with disdain, as he violently shoved Kevin. The boy crumpled to the wet ground, his torn clothes soaking even deeper into the dirty puddle that had formed around him. Elegant women, draped in designer labels, averted their gazes in disgusted unison, while men in crisp suits whispered about these people who insisted on infesting decent places. The drumming of rain against the glass mingled with the hushed murmurs of disapproval echoing through the opulent hall. "Look at that, she shouldn't even be here," muttered Patricia Blackwell, a socialite known more for her carefully curated charity parties than genuine compassion. She adjusted her Hermes bag, ensuring her words carried, loud enough for others to hear. "These street kids are all the same, little thieves looking for an opportunity. They should have better control in this place." Kevin slowly pushed himself up, wiping the blood from his skinned knee with the back of his hand. At 15, he had already learned the world had designated places for people like him, and it certainly wasn't here, among the glittering designer stores and the refrigerated air that gusted from the automatic doors with every important entry or exit. His mother had always promised things would change, but she had left 3 years ago, leaving only promises and a faith Kevin desperately struggled to keep alive. Yet, in that moment, when everyone expected him to flee like a wounded animal, something different happened. Kevin stood still, his eyes, unnervingly serene, observing every face around him. A disquieting intelligence shone in their depths, contrasting brutally with his fragile appearance, a quiet strength no one there expected to find. Anderson took a step towards him, preparing for a second, more violent shove, when a muffled, dry thud echoed among the decorative plants. It was the unmistakable sound of a body hitting polished marble, hard. Among the expensive ornamental plants, a blonde woman in her 30s lay unconscious, a small pool of blood slowly forming beneath her head. Her manicured fingernails dug into the floor as her body convulsed in involuntary spasms. This was Victoria Hartwell, heiress to a multimillion-dollar real estate empire, now clearly in premature labor. Her Chanel dress was stained with blood, her expensive jewelry scattered like fallen stars. Her pearl necklace, worth more than many earned in a year, had broken, leaving a white trail across the dark marble. No one had noticed her fall. They were all too preoccupied ridiculing a street urchin to see a genuine tragedy unfolding just feet away. The irony was cruel, almost unbearable. While they pointed fingers at an innocent boy, a woman in dire need lay dying in silence. Kevin's eyes, sharp and clear, took in the entire scene. The same people who had humiliated him seconds before were now animatedly chattering about their insignificant problems, utterly oblivious to the drama unfolding. Security guard Anderson checked messages on his cell phone. Patricia Blackwell touched up her lipstick, gossiping about an acquaintance. The elegant crowd continued their conspicuous consumption as if nothing had changed. The boy approached the unconscious woman silently, his bare feet making no sound on the cold floor. Victoria was losing a lot of blood, her lips beginning to turn a worrying blue. Her breathing was irregular and labored, and Kevin, drawing on knowledge gleaned from observing pregnant women in his community, recognized the signs of labor. Without a moment's hesitation, he stripped off his own wet and torn t-shirt to apply firm pressure to her head wound. With the care and precision of someone who had rescued others in similar desperate situations, he gently positioned her on her side to aid her breathing and prevent choking. Then, he filled his lungs and screamed, as loud as he could, "Help! There's a woman here who needs urgent help. She's bleeding heavily." Heads snapped towards him, as if a spell had been broken. Security guard Anderson, suddenly jolted into action, ran towards the sound, followed by the curious crowd, now eager for something genuinely interesting to watch. When they saw the scene, Kevin, shirtless, kneeling beside a blooded Victoria, his hands pressing down on her wound, the conclusions were immediate, devastating, and completely wrong. "My God, he attacked her!" Patricia shrieked, pointing dramatically at Kevin as if denouncing a serial killer. "I knew this would happen. Call the police right now." Anderson grabbed Kevin by the arm with brutal force, twisting it behind him, eliciting a groan of pain from the boy. "You little bastard. What did you do to her? Confess now." "I didn't do anything. She was already like this when I found her. She needs a doctor urgently." Kevin tried to explain, but his voice was completely drowned out by the hysterical screams of the crowd, now a frenzied mob gathered around the scene. "Criminal. Thug. Look what he did to this poor woman." Accusations flew from all directions like projectiles. Smartphones appeared instantly, recording the scene from every conceivable angle. Kevin knew that in minutes, he would be plastered across social media as just another juvenile offender who confirmed all the racial prejudices these people carried with pride, disguised as moral indignation. But as the storm of accusations grew around him like a hurricane of hatred and ignorance, Kevin kept his eyes fixed on the injured woman, continuing to apply pressure to her wound, even as Anderson twisted his arm and the crowd screamed for his immediate arrest. There was something in that look, a quiet determination and genuine compassion, that didn't fit at all with the image of a helpless victim they wanted to see, nor with that of the violent criminal they were so eager to create. Surrounded by a crowd thirsty for blood and easy answers, Kevin held something none of them could imagine. An inner strength forged in adversity and an intelligence sharpened by years of survival. He had memorized every face, every name shouted, every false accusation. And those who truly understand strength know that it grows precisely in the silence of injustice, accumulating energy for the precise moment to manifest itself. The wail of ambulance sirens pierced through the mall's grand atrium like a dramatic, if belated, chorus. But by the time paramedics arrived, the scene they encountered was already irrevocably distorted. Anderson held Kevin immobilized against the cold marble wall, his grip unyielding, while Patricia Blackwell, with a theatrical performance worthy of an experienced actress, began narrating her fabricated version of events. "I saw everything. That boy was hiding behind the plants, waiting for the victim to pass by. When she fell, he took advantage of her." Patricia gestured dramatically, her diamond ring catching the light from the cell phone cameras that now swarmed the scene like digital vultures. The chief paramedic, Robert, knelt beside Victoria and immediately noticed something amiss. This wound was caused by a fall, not by assault. And someone did the first aid correctly. They positioned her on her side and applied pressure to the wound. Whoever did that saved her life. "I helped her. I know first aid because my mother was," Kevin tried to explain, but Anderson squeezed his arm even tighter against his back, cutting him off with another violent shove. "Shut up, kid. Nobody wants to hear your lies." Anderson growled, clearly relishing the sudden power the situation afforded him. Patricia, eyes gleaming with media attention, approached the cameras. "You need to understand that places like this attract these kinds of people. They come here looking for opportunities, and when they find a vulnerable woman," she shook her head with a practiced, false sadness. Just then, Victoria began to regain consciousness, her confused eyes struggling to focus. "The boy, where's the boy who helped me?" were her first coherent words. Patricia quickly interjected, stepping forward. "Don't worry, dear, we've already captured the criminal. You're safe now." "No." Victoria tried to sit up, a surge of adrenaline overcoming her pain. "You don't understand. He saved me. I was passing out, and he was the only one who helped me." "She's confused from the trauma," Patricia announced with a medical authority she clearly didn't possess. "It's common for victims of assault to be disoriented." Kevin watched everything with a disconcerting serenity. At 15, he'd already learned that in this world, truth often lost out to more convenient narratives. As the accusations flew, he mentally catalogued every detail. Patricia Blackwell, he recognized the name from reports about NGO fraud. Anderson, the tattoo on his wrist revealed affiliations his mother had always warned him to avoid. "I want to talk to the boy," Victoria insisted, trying to stand up. "That won't be possible," a newly arrived police officer intervened, his voice brusque. "The suspect will be taken in for questioning." Kevin finally spoke, his calm voice cutting through the chaos like a surgeon's blade. "Mrs. Victoria, how are the babies?" A sudden, profound silence fell over the group. Victoria looked directly at him, surprised. "How did you, twins, From the position and movement. Probably twins. And from the pattern of your breathing, one of them was in distress. That's why you fainted. Robert, the chief paramedic, looked at Kevin with genuine interest. How does a boy your age know that? My mother was an obstetric nurse at General Hospital, Kevin replied, his voice imbued with a dignity that starkly contrasted with the treatment he was receiving. She taught me how to recognize signs of a high-risk pregnancy before she died 3 years ago. Victoria began to cry, not from pain, but from sheer relief. He's right about the twins, and I was having contractions. Patricia felt her carefully constructed narrative crumbling and frantically changed tactics. That doesn't change the fact that he was where he shouldn't have been. But something in Kevin's eyes had changed. It was no longer the look of a helpless victim, but of someone processing information, making connections, meticulously planning. He observed Patricia's expensive jewelry, how Anderson abused his authority, how they treated employees with contempt. You think you know who I am, Kevin said quietly, but there was something in his voice that made some people pause, truly listen. You think you can write my story based on what you see, but there are things you can't see. While he was handcuffed and led to the police car, Kevin kept his eyes fixed on each person who had participated in that injustice. His mind photographed faces, memorized names, absorbed every detail of the humiliation. Patricia waved to the cameras like a heroine, Anderson received praise for his quick action, and the crowd dispersed, satisfied to have witnessed yet another confirmation of their prejudices. What none of them could imagine was that this unimportant boy carried not only medical knowledge inherited from his mother but something far more powerful. The ability to turn injustice into fuel, humiliation into determination, and underestimation into strategic advantage. Each new humiliation only strengthened something inside him that his oppressors couldn't see. A quiet strength fueled by the very injustice they sought to impose. What those privileged people didn't know was that every act of contempt was writing their own sentence of defeat, and that the boy they had just underestimated held secrets that would transform their lives in ways they could never imagine. At the police station, Kevin was thrown into an overcrowded cell where the suffocating smell of urine and cheap disinfectant hung heavy in the air. The other inmates watched him curiously, a boy too skinny to be dangerous, too clean to be a real criminal. "Hey, kid, what did you do?" asked a middle-aged man with tattoos covering his arms. "I saved a pregnant woman's life," Kevin replied simply, causing cynical laughter throughout the cell. Meanwhile, at the city's most exclusive private hospital, Victoria Hartwell was fighting premature contractions as medical specialists rushed to stabilize her twin pregnancy. Between contractions, she insisted to anyone who would listen, "The boy saved me. You've got the wrong person." Dr. Marcus Steinberg, her private obstetrician, tried to calm her down. "Victoria, you need to focus on the babies right now. Let the police take care of the rest." "No," she screamed, grabbing his wrist with surprising strength. "That boy knew it was twins just by looking at me. He has medical knowledge. I need to talk to my lawyer." 3 hours later, renowned criminal defense attorney Jonathan Pierce received an urgent call from his most important client. Pierce was known for never losing a case and for charging fees that cost more than entire houses. When Victoria explained the situation, he initially tried to dissuade her. "Victoria, you're stressed from the premature birth. A street kid with medical knowledge? That doesn't make sense." "Jonathan, I pay you to win impossible cases, not to question my sanity. Go to that police station now." As Pierce reluctantly drove to the police station, Patricia Blackwell was giving interviews to 3 different television stations, wearing a power suit that cost more than many families' annual income. She had become the unofficial spokesperson for public safety. This incident perfectly demonstrates why we need stricter controls on these people. Patricia declared to the cameras, her eyes shining with media attention. "Shopping malls are family places, and we can't allow them to become danger zones." Anderson was also enjoying his 15 minutes of fame, giving interviews to private security blogs and receiving job offers from larger companies. "I always knew there was something wrong with that kid. He lied blatantly. My security instincts never fail me." In his cell, Kevin remained silent, but his mind was working like a high-speed computer. He had memorized every detail of them all, every person involved, every lie told. More importantly, he had noticed something that no adult had. Victoria had not fallen by accident. When he was finally taken in for questioning, Kevin found two bored detectives who had clearly decided he was guilty before they even heard his side of the story. Detective Murphy, a pot-bellied man with old coffee breath, practically yawned as he read Kevin his rights. "Look, kid, we've got witnesses, evidence, motive. Your best bet is to confess and maybe you'll get a deal." "I'd like to make a phone call," Kevin said calmly. Murphy laughed. "Who for? Do you have a lawyer?" "Actually, yes," an authoritative voice echoed through the room. Jonathan Pierce stormed in, wearing a $3,000 suit, his presence instantly changing the atmosphere of the room. "My client won't say another word without me present. And you," he pointed at the detectives as if they were naughty children, "have exactly 24 hours to come up with real evidence, or I'll sue this department for illegal arrest and racial discrimination." Murphy tried to protest, but Pierce continued, "Oh, and Detective Murphy, I suggest you check the mall security cameras before continuing with this charade. All 16 cameras." 2 hours later, Kevin was free on bail, paid by Victoria Hartwell, but the real work was just beginning. Pierce took Kevin to his office, an imposing space on the 40th floor of a skyscraper, offering a panoramic view of the city. "Tell me everything from the beginning," Pierce commanded, turning on a professional tape recorder. Kevin recounted his story with surgical precision, including crucial details he'd observed but no one had asked him about. Pierce furiously took notes, occasionally stopping to interject with specific questions that demonstrated his vast experience with complex cases. "Kevin, you said you noticed something strange about her fall. What exactly?" "The angle was wrong," Kevin replied, his voice steady. "People who faint fall forward or to the side. She fell backward, as if she had been pushed. And there was a red mark on her wrist, as if someone had grabbed her tightly." Pierce stopped writing and looked directly at Kevin. "Did you notice that right away?" "Yes. My mother always taught me to observe everything. She said that people like us have to be twice as smart to get half the opportunities." At that moment, Pierce realized he wasn't dealing with an ordinary victim, but someone with a rare kind of intelligence, forged by necessity and sharpened by injustice. More importantly, he realized that Kevin had, perhaps instinctively, withheld crucial information that could not only exonerate him but expose something far bigger. As Patricia continued to give interviews and Anderson received higher-paying job offers, neither of them imagined that their lives were about to be dissected by a relentless duo. A lawyer who never lost, and a 15-year-old boy who had learned to see truths that privileged adults preferred to ignore. It was when Pierce began reviewing the security camera footage that something extraordinary began to take shape, not just evidence of Kevin's innocence, but clues to a deep-seated conspiracy that would transform the case from a simple false accusation into something that would shake the very foundations of the local elite. Pierce's conference room was packed with officials when the security camera footage began playing on a 60-inch screen. Patricia Blackwell and Anderson had been invited to attend, along with more representatives, detectives, prosecutors, and reporters from 3 television stations. "Camera number 7, 3:42 p.m., Pierce announced, pressing the button on the remote control. "Watch closely what happens behind the ornamental plants." The image showed Victoria walking alone toward the plants when a male figure approached her from behind. It was Anderson. He followed her discreetly, checking to make sure no one was watching, and then pushed her hard against a plant pot. Victoria hit her head on the marble and passed out instantly. That must be an editing mistake," stammered Patricia, her face draining of color. "The images must have been altered." Pierce smiled coldly. "Camera number 12, same time, different angle." The second recording showed the exact same event with crystal clarity, including the chilling moment when Anderson checked to see if Victoria was unconscious before quickly walking away. Anderson tried to get up from his chair, but 2 private security guards hired by Pierce kept him firmly seated. "I can explain. She was acting suspiciously." "Acting suspiciously how?" Pierce asked, his voice heavy with sarcasm. "By existing while pregnant. Or perhaps by breathing while rich." Kevin, sitting silently beside Pierce, finally spoke up, his voice cutting through the tension. Camera number 3 shows what happened 5 minutes before the incident. Anderson received a phone call and looked directly at Victoria, then he walked toward the plants. The third recording confirmed exactly that. Anderson answered his cell phone, looked at Victoria with a determined expression, and then walked deliberately to intercept her. Patricia was visibly panicked. That doesn't prove anything. Even if Anderson made a mistake, I only reported what I saw. Ah, about that, Pierce said, opening a folder and pulling out several sheets of paper. Here we have the complete record of her phone calls from that day. 3 calls to Anderson in the 20 minutes before the incident, and a very interesting text message. He read aloud, "I need an urgent favor. The Hartwell woman will be at the mall today. Make sure she has an accident that justifies a miscarriage. I'll pay $50,000 if it looks convincing." The silence in the room was deafening. Patricia was completely pale, her hands shaking visibly. That's forged. I never wrote that. Digital forensics has already confirmed its authenticity, Pierce continued mercilessly. Furthermore, we have bank records of transfers from your account to Anderson's over the last 6 months. Apparently, this wasn't the first favor you requested. Anderson finally broke down. She promised me a better job. She said if I did a few small things she would recommend me to more prestigious security companies. He pointed dramatically at Patricia. She planned everything. I just carried it out. Shut up, you idiot. Patricia screamed, completely losing the elegant composure she had maintained in public. Kevin slowly rose, his quiet presence commanding unexpected attention in the room. May I ask why you wanted to hurt Victoria Hartwell? Patricia looked at him with pure hatred. As if you would understand. People like you never understand how the world really works. Try to explain it to me, Kevin said calmly. Victoria inherited everything, Patricia spat, her voice laced with bitter envy. A family empire, connections, money. And on top of that, she was pregnant with twins who would inherit even more. Patricia was now completely out of control. Meanwhile, people like me have to work twice as hard to get half the recognition. So you decided that the solution was to murder innocent babies? Kevin asked, his voice carrying a coldness that made some of those present shiver. It was at that precise moment that the door opened, and Victoria entered, walking with difficulty but determined. Her twins had miraculously survived the attack, and she had insisted on being present to see justice done. Patricia, Victoria said, her voice calm but laden with authority, we've known each other for 10 years. I considered you a friend. I trusted you with family secrets, and you tried to kill my children out of jealousy. Patricia tried one last desperate card. Victoria, you have to understand. I was going through financial difficulties. My own company was going bankrupt. Your company went bankrupt because you embezzled funds from 3 charities, Pierce interrupted, pulling out more documents. We have the evidence for that too. $400,000 intended for needy children diverted to your personal account. Victoria looked directly at Kevin, her voice thick with emotion. You saved my children's lives twice. First, when you rescued me at the mall, then when you realized my fall wasn't an accident. Kevin nodded modestly, his gaze steady. My mother always taught me that justice isn't revenge, it's making sure the truth is known. The detectives who had arrested Kevin were present, visibly embarrassed by the undeniable evidence unfolding before them. Detective Murphy, the pot-bellied man with the perpetually tired look, tried to offer an awkward apology, but Kevin gently interrupted him. You did your job based on the information you had. The important thing is that we now know the truth. As Patricia Blackwell and Anderson were formally arrested for attempted murder, fraud, and conspiracy, Kevin watched the scene with a serene composure that contrasted sharply with the chaos around him. The elegant socialite, once so sure of her immunity, now stood exposed, her carefully constructed facade of charity crumbling under the weight of her avarice. Anderson, the self-righteous security guard, was reduced to a sniveling co-conspirator, his bravado utterly evaporated. Jonathan Pierce approached Kevin, a slight smile playing on his lips. Kevin, Victoria would like to make you an offer. She wants to pay for your medical school. Full tuition, plus residency. Kevin's face broke into a genuine smile for the first time in days. I accept, he said, but on one condition. Pierce, intrigued, asked, what is it? I want to specialize in emergency medicine, Kevin replied, his eyes shining with newfound purpose, so I can help people like Victoria when they need it most. Victoria approached, tears welling in her eyes. Kevin, I can't thank you enough. You don't have to thank me, Kevin replied, his voice soft but resolute. Just make sure your children grow up knowing that genuine kindness still exists in the world. As the cold steel of handcuffs clicked shut around Patricia and Anderson, one profound question hung in the air. How had a 15-year-old boy from the streets, stripped of dignity and falsely accused, managed not only to survive such an elaborate conspiracy but to unravel it, turning it into an opportunity that would forever change his life? The answer was about to reveal something even more extraordinary about the true character forged when adversity meets a genuinely noble soul. 5 years later, Dr. Kevin Williams walked through the gleaming halls of the very hospital where, as a battered and falsely accused teenager, he'd once been brought in. Now, at 20, he was there as a respected resident in emergency medicine, one of the most competitive and demanding specialties in the field. Dr. Williams, we have an obstetric emergency coming in, announced the head nurse, handing him a clipboard. Kevin had quickly become known throughout the hospital not only for his exceptional technical skills but for the profound empathy with which he treated every patient, regardless of their social background. That morning, Victoria Hartwell arrived at the hospital, accompanied by her 5-year-old twins, Henry and Emma, for her prenatal appointment for her third pregnancy. The children, spotting Kevin in the hallway, immediately shouted, "Uncle Kevin," in unison, rushing to hug his legs. Victoria smiled warmly, watching the scene. Over the past 5 years, Kevin had become an integral part of the Hartwell family, not as a protégé, but as a cherished, chosen brother. How are the future doctors? Kevin asked, kneeling down to be at the children's height. Henry, wide-eyed, declared he wanted to be a pediatrician just like Uncle Kevin, while Emma dreamed of becoming a nurse, dedicated to helping those in need. Victoria watched with palpable pride. They learned early on that helping those in need is what makes us truly rich, she said, her gaze fixed on Kevin. And they know exactly who they inherited that lesson from. Meanwhile, in a small, stark cell in the state penitentiary, Patricia Blackwell was serving her 15-year sentence for attempted murder and fraud. Her once gleaming NGOs had been thoroughly exposed in a national documentary, transforming her into a symbol of how privileged individuals exploit social causes for personal gain. Anderson, released after 3 years, was left with a criminal record that barred him from working in security ever again. He eked out a living doing odd jobs, forever avoiding the mall where his life, and Kevin's, had dramatically intersected, unable to face his own demons. Pierce, who had become Kevin's steadfast mentor, visited him regularly at the hospital. You know, Kevin, in 30 years of law, your case has taught me the most about true justice. What do you mean? Kevin asked, as he calmly checked a patient's test results. Justice isn't just about punishing those who have done wrong, Pierce replied, his eyes reflecting the same serenity he now saw in Kevin. It's about ensuring that people like you have the opportunity to show the world who they really are. That same day, Kevin received an unexpected letter. It was from Patricia, written from prison. Dr. Williams, it began, I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I need you to know, you taught me that true wealth isn't what we have, but what we offer the world. Kevin folded the letter carefully and tucked it away. It wasn't about forgiving or not forgiving. It was about choosing to build something greater than the pain he had suffered. Dr. Marcus Steinberg, Victoria's obstetrician who now worked closely with Kevin, often told other doctors how a street kid had become one of the most promising residents he had ever known. He has something you can't learn in college, he'd always say, a genuine compassion forged by the real-life experience of needing help. Later that day, Kevin met Victoria in the hospital cafeteria. I have some news, she said, her eyes sparkling. The Hartwell Williams Foundation for Medical Education has received final approval. We'll be able to offer full scholarships to 50 underprivileged young people each year. Kevin smiled, a profound sense of satisfaction settling over him. The foundation had been his idea, a way to transform his personal experience into opportunities for others facing similar barriers. My mother always said that when you're given a blessing, you have a duty to pass it on. And you've passed it on in spades, Victoria replied, her voice thick with emotion. That 15-year-old boy who saved me didn't just save my life. He completely changed the way our family sees the world. That night, Kevin returned to his apartment near the hospital. It was simple, yet comfortable, a place where he truly felt at home for the first time since his mother's death. On the wall, framed, was his medical degree, hanging proudly next to a photo of him with Victoria and her children 5 years earlier. Patricia and Anderson had tried to destroy him based on their prejudices. Today, while he saved lives and built bridges between different worlds, they were dealing with the bitter consequences of choices based on hatred and envy. Kevin's true revenge was not to destroy his oppressors. It was to build a life so meaningful that it rendered the opinions of those who tried to limit him utterly irrelevant. He proved that when you turn pain into purpose, every obstacle becomes a stepping stone to heights your detractors could never imagine. And so, Kevin learned the most powerful lesson of all: the best revenge isn't making your enemies pay for what they did. It's achieving such authentic and inspiring success that they spend the rest of their lives wondering how they could have so profoundly underestimated someone who always had enough greatness to turn injustice into justice and discrimination into an opportunity to enlighten the world.